Hi, this is Dr. Pachenik. Today I want to talk about the massacre at Tiananmen Square, or what we call number 64. The massacre occurred on June 4th, 1989. I was the DAS for East Asia, and we had a lot of operatives in Beijing at the time. However, we were not able to stop what eventually turned out to be one of the largest massacres since the Cultural Revolution, where thousands and tens of thousands of students were beaten up, killed, and arrested as a result of protesting against Li Peng and Deng Xiaoping. And this occurred at a place in Beijing called Tiananmen Square. Many of you may recognize the picture of a man standing in front of a lot of tanks. That is the symbol of Tiananmen Square. But what most of you don't know, and it hasn't been propagated because for 30 years the Chinese have tried to keep silent, was the fact that 1 million students were protesting. They wanted a clean, non-corrupt communist system, the type that is right now a corrupt system like President Xi has. But at that time, they were protesting against Li Peng, the equivalent of President Xi, and Deng Xiaoping, who unfortunately used the military to slaughter his own people. The students couldn't believe that the People's Liberation Army would kill them because they were the part of that army. But the army did slaughter them. It did arrest thousands and tens of thousands. The actual record is not clear to us because we didn't have very good intel at the moment that it occurred. What is important to remember, and what President Xi has to remember, is that Tiananmen Square was an outgrowth of the 1919 May 4th revolution, which also occurred with thousands of Chinese students who were protesting the Versailles Treaty, where the Versailles Treaty had put and asserted Japan into China instead of Germany, and the students began to protest that. That was the beginning of nationalism and the kind of rebellion that you would see eventually occur in 1934 to 1945 in World War II, and then eventually the type of terror that the Red Brigade came in, the Red Guards, and killed millions of Chinese during the Cultural Revolution, but there was a counterforce to it, but it wasn't effective enough. Then we get to June 4th, 1989, where again the students protested the concept of Li Peng and Deng Xiaoping. They had followed the reforms of Huai Yugong, a gentleman who was in the Communist Party, had believed in reforms for China. And it turns out in retrospect that many of the generals and senior leaders of the Communist Party at that time in '89 believed that there should be reforms. There shouldn't be corruption in the Chinese Communist Party, and there should be more of an entree for the young students. Well, that didn't happen. And now what you have is a reminiscence of what happened 30 years ago and the terrible memories that many of these students carry on. I would be surprised if there weren't some form of a protest or recognition of the fact of Tiananmen Square and what we call the massacre. The reason it was called 64 is because it wasn't June, it was on the 4th of June. Now President Xi has to understand that students of China 30 years later are more intelligent, more aggressive, and are far more in tune to revolution because they have been on the internet and they know exactly how powerful the revolution can be in person as well as on the internet. Let me quote to you something that Mark Twain once said. He said that a massacre is a very deadly element, but soap and education is far more deadly than a massacre in the long term. Thank you and good night.